Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the podcast. I'm your co-host M to Dave, and I'm here with my co-host Rio, Tom Brady, Zyphox, and unfortunately Slips could not be here with us tonight because he has to work tomorrow morning. But we have two returning guests. We have Burrito Voorhees, aka King Jr., and we have CrimsonShadow, who joins us again. Welcome back, guys.
Welcome, guys.
What's up, guys?
What's up?
So today we only really have one topic that we want to focus on, which kind of can branch into different directions, which is MKX against MK11. So Tom made a point earlier before we went live on air. He said that MKX is going to be featured on the PS5. So I think we would bring up this discussion and kind of talk about how the games are, which one is more difficult to play, how do you know which game you like personally more. So let's start with everybody. Just give me your general quick overview, which game you like more, which game you had more fun with, and then we'll take it from there. Let's start with Rio.
Yeah, well, I had more fun with MK11 than MKX. I had some pretty bad memories with MKX. But I just want to keep it really quick. In terms of like the game, I'll rank them with execution, balance. I say MK11 wins in balance. Execution kind of go either way. I would have given it to MKX if the community didn't get characters that had execution nerfed, like Spectral Ermac and Swarm Queen Devora. If it wasn't for that, then I would give the nod to MKX. But I think MK11 actually has better execution because of the flawless blocking some of the characters. I mean, in MKX you have what? Dragonfire, Liu Kang, Johnny, and Predator. Like, is that literally it? There's like 3 characters, and half of them aren't even really execution. But yeah, I'm gonna say MK11 definitely better balanced with the variation system compared to MKX, and I had more fun with it than MKX.
All right, thank you. Let's go with Tom.
This is tough for me. I would say MKX, even though obviously I didn't have the fondest memories of that game. But I would go with MKX simply because I feel like MKX had more of that Mortal Kombat feel for me. The balance to me in both games has their own issues. Mortal Kombat X has balance issues because everything is over the top, especially when the game launched. Mortal Kombat 11 has balance issues because you have a character that does down 1, sweep, down 4, and forward 3 shoulder through all 3 variations. And another character is a human projectile. So there's a huge disparity in the balance for different reasons. One, because stuff is over the top. The other, because stuff is relatively underwhelming. I prefer MKX because basically, to make it real quick, it's almost like there's this game Street Fighter Rainbow Edition, which I'm sure anyone who's played Street Fighter back in the day is familiar with, where characters are like crazy, like you're doing fireballs in the air, full screen dragon punches, etc. It's over the top, right? Obviously not a competitive game, but it's fun. Now, if they were to make Street Fighter Hella Nerfed Edition, in which every special move was garbage or non-existent, and every character was basic, it would be more balanced, but it would be the most boring game known to man. And I feel like Mortal Kombat 11 is on that end of it, and MKX is on the other end. So overall, I would have loved to seen something in the middle, but I feel like they just went from one extreme to the other, and I would much rather have the other extreme over nothing at all. So I chose MKX.
Right, thank you. Let's go with Zyphox.
Excuse me. So, I tend to agree with Tom here. I think that MK11, while I have been having fun recently, trying to get better at the game and like just getting over myself, I think that the variation system in MKX is just more nuanced, and I feel like they regressed. I feel like they didn't want to make the variation system for MK11, but they ended up having to do so at the last minute, and it kind of suffered for it. A lot of characters are kind of like low key, not very much different. Like if you look, for example, for me, look at Liu Kang and the 3 different variations he has in MKX versus the 3 different variations he has in MK11. It's night and day. It's not even close. You have one character that's fucking pressure god, and the other one doesn't even have like real pressure in whatchamacallit, the yin yang variation. I forgot what the fucking duelist, right? You don't even have real pressure in that one. Yeah, it's.
Wait. That one does have real pressure.
I mean,
It's
maybe.
got plus frames.
I mean, it got plus frames probably like last patch type of shit. Like I barely use it, but you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like it's just a difference.
They have
Like,
pressure, but
Yeah, it's just the worst version of Dragonfire Liu Kang.
it's
Yeah.
a pressure in two different ways. It's not similar at all.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. And then you got Flame Fist or whatever, and then you look at like the variations that you have with Liu Kang in this one. It's just like I could say that Liu Kang variation with Wu Shi is different than the other two, but I don't see much difference in them, to be honest with you. Versus like the variation system, like certain characters, like they even made like Triborg, for example. Look at that, just that example, for example. Sorry. Um, Other than that, I had more fun and fond memories with MKX as well. But then again, that game kind of lasted. It's been in its life cycle longer because it's already been in the past. We haven't gotten through the entire life cycle of MK11, and then we had the pandemic hit, which kind of nullified every like the pro tour season for this year, which would have been like year 2 of MKX. Like, remember year 2 MKX was completely different than year 1. Year 1 MKX, no netcode. We had like old OGs still placing and doing everything. 2016, 2017, you had all these new up and comers like Samij, uh, Rewind, these kind of people. They were starting to get real good and like kind of overtook some of the OGs, and it kind of changed. I feel like that didn't happen in this game. I also prefer just like the overall like more fun that I had with MKX. Just simply having a funner gameplay experience versus like MK11 where it's like it's frustrating. It's a different type of frustration. In MKX, your frustration was getting mixed and like getting armor launched or whatever until the last patch, and then like
And getting jumped in 20 times per round.
sure, but that I mean, obviously, I don't think that really changed much. MK11 jump kicks, but some characters jump kick kickbox are ridiculous, right? So, and MK11, I feel like you're not as a threat. Like, you remember how scared characters were to press buttons in MKX? I feel like that's not a thing in MK11.
Well, yeah, because your opponent can just choose Melina and they automatically give off that effect without even
Sure,
having to
but
earn it.
what about like the 95% of players who didn't use Melina? Like,
What do you mean, like Shinnok, who the same effect? You literally can't press a button because random health sparks?
sure, but I mean, I'm talking about like in a neutral setting in close range. When we're talking about like
Yeah,
if
but
having
the reason
someone-
why people don't want to press buttons in MKX is because people could just do shit. Like Leatherface could just instantly run at you with a safe move that leads to 50% restand, and there's so much shit like that in the game.
I'm not even talking about in neutral. Like, I'm talking about you get into a situation where you're both 0 on block and you're like in close, right? Or matter of fact, you're plus on block. First of all, plus frames are hard to come by in MK11. But if you were plus on block, like, what is a real threat of pressing a button when most characters can only really just check you versus like completely blowing you up, putting you into an unfavorable situation. MK11, the unfavorable situation is like almost non-existent because you get knocked down, you have 37 options, and you also have all this other bullshit that you have to worry about. And then once you do get them to basically respect, most of the time you're doing like a down one meaty or you're just stepping away entirely. The knockdown game was neutered.
Well, yeah, MK11 is more stressful in the way that you have all these options. You have to think of so many different
Well,
layers. Whereas
yeah.
MKX is, you literally have the most generic game plan that literally someone from MK Deception could enforce an overhead or low
Well,
that you're guaranteed to block.
yeah, let's save like the details for later. I just wanted to get like a quick overview. So we'll continue with the.
No. It's okay, Rio. Go ahead. Get it off your chest. It's fine.
No,
Wait,
wait,
I'm just-
no, guys. We're not gonna get into this right now. Remember what we said. I would like to get Crimson's opinion next, and we'll talk about the other stuff. Crimson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I enjoyed both of the games. I do like MK11 more. I had fun playing MKX, and I thought the game was fun, but I also thought that the run button was really killer. It changes not just the neutral, it also changes Oki. All of a sudden, nearly every knockdown, no matter where it is, results in you being able to run into a situation that's near point blank or where you can Oki someone and force them to hold something, right? Be it a mix up, be it plus frames, whatever. And so that was one thing that I really didn't like about the game. I thought people spent way too much time in each other's faces and way too much time basically having to hold things and guess. And it was crazy. It was nice. It was fun. But that's not the style of gameplay that I really love. I did like certain things about the game. I did like the creativity of the way certain characters played. For example, Takeda, there's not really an archetype like that in MK11. I really enjoyed the way he played, and also the fact that he was different. Actually, both his commonly played variations, and really all three of them together, played very differently than most of the cast, and I thought that was cool. I thought the corner carry in MKX was completely out of control, both because the gravity being the way that it was, so much lighter than MKX, you could juggle people for longer. There were so many normals that advanced so far, and when you combine that with the run button and run castles and things like that, there were little people who their first combo already, you were in the corner and having to hold mix-ups. I did like the combos. I thought a lot of the combos were pretty fun to do. They were different with different characters. It took different techniques. For some people, that was run castles and stuff like that. For other people, it was weird juggles and things like that. A lot of that went out the window in MK11 intentionally, but I do miss it. But as far as things that I like about MK11 more, I really enjoy the footsies in the neutral game. I really enjoy walking. That's something that, a lot of people were kind of waiting to come back. It was there to some extent in Justice, although people were most commonly walking backward rather than really walking forward and back and playing footsies in the way that you do in MK11. But MK11 feels like the right balance, right? The stages are the right size, and there's just enough movement that you have some flexibility, but not so much that you can force people to hold things at every single second, and not so little that you're literally just backing away and playing keep away all the time. And so there's a good balance. And you see a lot of things that you didn't see as much of in MKX. There's a ton of whiff punishing. There's a ton of baiting. There's a ton of patience and slower moments where two people are really just feeling each other out and waiting to see someone do something. And that's stuff that I really enjoy. Also, I know, Dave, you're going to hate me for saying this.
Go ahead.
But I actually think that the zoning in MK11 is pretty cool. It's the style of zoning that I like. I know a lot of times in NRS games, especially between MK9 and Injustice, we're used to the kind of zoning where you completely lock someone down with projectiles only before they can even move. Or in the case of Injustice, you can even mix people up sometimes, right? With meter burns into overheads and things like that. And the zoning in MK11 is a lot more like modern Street Fighter in that, obviously Street Fighter, you can't lock people down in a lot of matches for other reasons, right? Projectiles trade and things like that. But in general, most people, when they're zoning in Street Fighter, are also playing footsies at the same time, all right? You're close enough that you're not quite out of danger. You can't just keep people out completely with projectiles. And it sort of fits into the neutral game as sort of like a seamless combination. And so, you have these characters like Liu Kang and Johnny and stuff like that where you can't ignore the zoning, right? It's a great form of space control. It's a check on your movement. But at the same time, it's not so severe that you literally can't move. And, I think a lot of times we tend to think of zoning as like zoning from, say, Marvel style games or anime games. But the thing that people don't take into account is in those games, you usually have a lot more mobility options, right? It's not like Street Fighter style movement with crazy projectile hell, right? You've got air blocking, air guard, you got triple jump, you've got characters coming in with assists and stuff like that. And so I feel like the way that zoning is in MK11 is a really good balance for the franchise. So yeah, just to summarize, I had fun playing both games, but I think my heart is a little bit more with MK11.
All right, interesting perspective. King Jr., go right ahead.
So I agree with partially with a lot of what Zyphox said with it's a different type of BS we have to deal with in MK11 compared to X. Like X was mindless 50-50 rush down, while MK11 was just I don't know, I guess whatever he said, I forgot because there was so much being talked about. But if I had to choose, I would choose MKX. If I had to preference of what I'd rather play because of the extra depth it had with combos, the creativity, and less limitations you had. MK11 just too plain for me, and in my opinion, I think it's just getting really old. And there's like stuff that I lose to in the game that I'm not normally like. I feel like I normally wouldn't lose to outside MK11. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I have never gotten so pissed at a game out of any NRS game that we've played. Like, behind the scenes, I get so annoyed playing MK11 whenever I'm like just putting up with certain things in certain situations. So,
Can you describe the situation?
like, there's just a bunch of hitbox issues, inconsistencies. Like, I saw a recent one on Twitter where Raiden did back four, which is a sweep, which is a low attack, and somebody jumped over Raiden, but like they got hit while they were airborne. And I guess he might have a hitbox like on his arm or something when he does his back four. So it's just like that's just like one example of a hitbox issue or inconsistency, or you have random strings that whiff on certain characters or everybody. Like Liu Kang has a bunch of them. Garrus has 421 exploits. Any others that I'm forgetting, but there's a bunch of them. I can't remember all of them because that's how many there are. There's so many, and it just another example of why the game's so plain, in my opinion, is that you can't really distinguish players apart, like with their combos, like you could in MKX. Like pretty much every person's doing the same combos with the same characters.
I think people play in general like the same. With
Oh yeah,
I don't see any real deviations.
Another thing you said earlier with your thing was there's barely any plus frames. Like, so pressure was super toned down, and there's not a way to blow up your opponent for guessing right. It's just like a minor check, like you said, rather than like a complete blow up.
And that it promotes like mashing, really. Like you don't have like no fear from disrespecting your opponent.
Yeah, and just so happens that Jackie is one of the few characters to blow you up rather than just minorly checking you. Like, she's one of the few characters that has that privilege. And
yeah,
crushing blows could use some more balance with the requirements and all that stuff. There's a bunch of other stuff I could talk about, but that's just long story
Well, I want you to talk about because you mentioned the depth and execution and some of that stuff, which has come up in your opinion, and then others have hinted at it. Could you kind of like talk about which game you think has more depth? Because I think that's kind of where some of the disagreements in this conversation might appear. Which game do you think has more depth? Which game do you think has more execution? Go ahead.
Okay, so I know there may be a disagreement, but I would easily say MKX does. Now, don't get me wrong. As far as the goal of what you're doing in MKX, it's just mindless rushdown. It's like mainly rushdown. I'm not gonna lie, it's rushdown. But every character, for the most part, had their different types of ways to rush you down, which kind of separated some characters and how they played, and they weren't super similar like they were in in 11. Like I'll name an example of like combo depth or something. But like Liu Kang combos, Ninja Killa, he played the game even when it was dead, and there was combos he was doing that. And I remember Master D, he did the Johnny Optimals with the jump punches. I don't know if he was the first one to find it out, or if Irish Mantis was, or whoever, but like there was like combos that you could tell like certain people did. Or Vendetta, he would do the 1-2 cancels for his pressure because that was his favorite cancel. I preferred me and Master D preferred the 3-3-3 cancels with the A-list cage, but you had Vendetta that did the 1-2 cancels. So like there was more variety of what you could do with the character you used. I don't know, it's just a few examples.
Look, I feel like we need to be honest here, because there's different layers of depth. When we say depth with MKX, we mean literally just combos. Because Where else are you looking for
I
depth?
don't know if that's necessarily accurate. But Tom, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I agree. First of all, you can't judge everybody. Everybody has difference in what's depth. This is the discussion that's been going on since I was literally first starting fighting games. What's a quote unquote more skilled fighting game or more depth? Some group of players may think it's execution. Some may think it's combos. Some may think it's, rush down. A lot of people have different definitions of what they consider depth to be. So there's really no such thing as all or every with that thing. To me, depth is just, I would say, your ability to explore and expand the game past its initial stages, which MK11 is one of the worst at doing that. MK11 has literally remained the same outside of patches almost from its very first day in strategies and what's worked. If I've watched Aaron Black do back 222 scud shot, and back then they didn't have to shoot it. Now they actually do. That's the only difference from the very first day of variation 1. Now obviously they've added more depth to his other variations, but really I think that it's kind of weird. If you look at MKX and MK11, so what's weird MK11 is like you have people who want to be they're so extreme. People get knocked down in MKX and they're terrified for their life. And of course, because we know they're in whatever that character has to in some type of blender, some type of heavily offensive situation. MK11, the player who takes no risks gets knocked down and he says, "Party time, boys, here I come. Wake up buttons." It's not even perceived as a risk. They're so polar opposite in like what they do and both for weird reasons. Overall, I think one of the things that MKX does that to me makes it more in depth is the variation system. The cool thing about the variation system, and it was great, we didn't air the podcast, but there was a point where Rio was joking around and Dave said, whatever. And Rio goes, "Well, make her back two an overhead." And Dave goes, "I don't want Katana's back two to be an overhead." But in reality, with the variation system, they can make two versions of a character, right? That's the whole purpose of the game. While MKX doesn't do this perfectly, we understand it's the first time they did it. They regressed on the variation system to the point that when we have characters, and a great example is Sonya, which characters are so tied to one thing, the other two variations cannot exist. She's played as a 50-50 character that has good zoning to kind of keep you, kind of play that mid-range game. But the 50-50 cannot reach its maximum potential without the ring cancel. And then rather than say, okay, well, let's give variation 1 and variation 3 its own thing, that's not, hey, I'm going to do rings and 50-50. Like the other stuff, the other aspects of that variation are very underwhelming. Rather than say, oh, let's give her a leg grab that amplified launches and the kiss. And, the other variation can have upward bike kick and cartwheel EX that launches. But instead they say, well, I mean, God, that would be kind of broken, right? You have a 50-50, then you're doing launchers anywhere on the screen. It never dawned on me to say, what if back 1-2 is a different string in variation 1 and 3, and then they have kiss, cartwheel, leg grab, etc. And this variation is the ring cancel, etc. I feel like MKX did a better job in separating the three variations. One of the things that MK was supposed to do with the variation system is like, they're going to play differently, right? The characters are going to be different. And I feel like you more so saw the same player using different variations. And like we would see, there were characters in MKX where one player would play, two players would say the same character, both two different variations, like Cicadas one, where you see Raptor playing him in whatever that first variation was, Shira Ryu, and V-Man, who was very good with him, would play him in Lasher, and then Hayate played him in Ronin, and they literally played those variations exclusively. And here's three players playing the same character, and you immediately know which one of them is playing. Different variations, all very effective at high level play. because that character was not bound to a specific set of tools, nor was he one variation punished for the sins of another. MK11, that is the game. You either have a variation that is bound to a certain set of tools, which until they changed Aaron Black's two variations, variation 2 and 3, that was Rio's point that he was bound to that scud shot because they didn't change him around, and then they've done that since then. But we see things like Sonya, she's bound to that ring cancel. No matter what anybody says, she's bound to it. Scorpion, not that shearing rage is bad, but at the highest possible level, if you truly want to maximize on his absolute potential against someone like a Sonic Fox or a Ninja Killer at the highest level, he is bound to that teleport cancel. And we see a lot of characters have these issues. And I just feel like MKX did that better.
But I mean, you also had those issues in MKX though.
Yeah, I think there's a little bias here. I think we're looking at things in perspective.
No, but the thing is, MKX was the first time they did it.
Like, if you talk about Takeda and MKX and ignore all the other characters that had the same issue.
I know, but the difference is MKX is the first time they did it. So you could look at MKX and say...
I get that, but MKX was also patched like 21 times, whereas MK11 was patched
That makes
barely.
it even worse. The fact that...
No, it doesn't, because that means MKX literally had to patch repeatedly like 20 times for it to be a product that people would...
And yet they had all this time to think about it, and they did it even worse.
But I'll give you an example. Like, for example, Triborg. Triborg is probably one of the more extreme uses of the variation system that we've seen in a game, right? But at the same time, they had a lot of trouble making sure that all variations of Triborg were equally balanced because there were so many things that were tied together. And so I think it's easy to cherry pick characters that either, make a mockery of the variation system or make it look great. For example, if we just talk about Jackie in MK11, right? She's got 3 very viable variations.
Yeah, that are all good.
Right.
Aaron Black, too, now is one of those characters. He's got 3 good variations.
And all of their playstyles, all of Jackie's playstyles and all her variations are very different from each other. So, you know what I mean? Like, I know what you're saying, but I think you have to be careful which characters you're talking about when you bring that up.
What baffles me...
There's a lot of, for example, Takeda's a good
variation characters.
What baffles...
No, but I'm saying Takeda makes the variation system look good in MKX. Takeda's a good example to make it look good. But then I could literally mention Aaron Black, and then MKX looks like the worst game ever made with the variation.
What's to me is, here's the variation system that they've had years to perfect. And it was if they never even thought about it. It's almost like they did it again for the first time in MK11, as if they didn't have all this data. And the weird thing about it that I don't understand about it is, again, if it was an indie company with limited resources, I would say, yeah, okay, I understand. To have this kind of backing, to say, you know what we should do with Sonya? We need to punish variation 1 and 3 for the sins of variation 2. Why? Well, I mean, 50-50? I mean, okay, why do all 3 of them need it? How does a studio at this kind of dev time cannot replace a single normal with another? You're not an indie company. You have nearly unlimited resources.
But you realize money is not what develops the game. You need time.
Yeah, the most important resource is limited is the
That's
time.
even more concerning, that the idea never crossed anybody's mind. That somewhere somebody thought it was a good idea to punish 2 variations for the sins of one of them.
I think you're saying
inexcusable in 2020.
I think you're saying this as if they had 5 years to lay out.
Not
exactly
my problem. Then they
what
should
they
take
wanted
another
to
year
do.
then. Because
Right. I don't think the resource that's missing is money or anything like that. I think they went straight from MKX into working on Injustice 2. They went straight from Injustice 2 into working on MK11, and a 2-year turnaround, anybody will tell you, for a AAA game is extremely fast.
We can't deny the product is better, though. It's better balanced, less bugs.
All I'm saying is just in the design of the character. When you're designing a Sonya or a Sub-Zero, first of all, Terminator, they were so busy that they said, you know what we should do? Let's take Jason Voorhees and put a Terminator skin on him, and we have Terminator. We'll just take all his animations and reuse them.
Yeah, that was weird.
And to be fair, though, Terminator is better designed than Jason MKX. Jason MKX was super one-dimensional, and he had 2 versions that almost played literally the same.
My point is, they could do so much more with Terminator, especially they could make his other special moves a little better than they are in 1 and 3. But you can't do that. Why? Well, he's got that 50-50. Okay, why is 1 and 3 punished for the sins of variation 2? Sub-Zero is another one. I didn't want to bring, but he has a 50-50, so I'm bringing up all the examples. Sonya Terminator, okay, if the designer really made the character, they say, I want this character to, and it could be done differently. So you could have that entry level, hey, if you're a beginner player, I don't give a shit about frame data, typical new age Mortal Kombat player. Frame data, I don't give a fuck. I want to mix. Okay. You got that. You got the traditional Dead of Winter staple. And if that you want to mix, you can do that. And if you just want a simpler game plan, you can do that. Or he has that Rising Ice launcher. They could take Thin Ice instead of giving him these garbage zoning tools. They could have just said, okay, no, this garbage iceberg gone. These garbage icicles, great to close a round out, although you'll never close a round out ever because the variation is garbage. So you just give him the Rising Ice launcher, the Air Axe, but can't give him that Rising Ice launcher. Why? Well, yeah, he could have added combo depth, but people want more combo depth, more harder execution, more damaging combos, but it can't have that with a 50-50. Why it never, at least when they did the first 2 variations, did somebody not say, you know what? Let's not give the second variation the 50-50. Let's not give Sonya variation 1 the 50-50. When you're designing the character, is the thinking that shallow that they say just cut and paste everything and throw some special moves on there? If that's how they're doing a variation system, and
was MKX not similar?
My point is, if 4 years later they still don't have the forward thinking, they need to say we don't have the resources to properly do the variation system in a 2-year window.
Tom, I think you and Rio worked there. It's a time thing. They set a date, the game has to be released by then. I think, to support your point, because I mostly agree with you, I think in MKX, the variations, forget the balance, they were just better design. You look at Tremor, which obviously I'm going to use the Tremor because I know the character the best. You can tell what they were trying to do. Obviously, the third, whatever the variation is with the, with the
metallic.
Yeah, you can. It sucks, right? It sucks, but you can tell kind of the direction they were going, right? Maybe it was supposed to be a little bit more zoning with the restand. You can kind of tell there was some thought involved. It's not very balanced because the other two are much better.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah, but I don't see how anybody can defend this. This is indefensible. The variation.
I think Tremor's a bad example here.
No, I think
there's literally no reason to play those 2 that you mentioned over what is it?
Crystalline and Apple.
Yeah, Crystal. There's no reason to play Aftershock.
Hold on a minute. Hold on.
Yeah, well,
nobody.
I don't want to hear. Oh, it has this
Real.
combo in the corner.
I'm not saying.
Come on,
I'm not saying anything if you're defending the variation system in any of these games, you're a fool. I'm sorry. Then you would be the fool of the week.
Well, guess what, Dave? For MK12, we're gonna get your wish. We're gonna get no variations, but you think we're gonna get this souped-up Tekken character 100 moves? But guess what? We're gonna get just the nice.
Nobody's talking about 100. They had the right idea. I trash MK9 a lot because it's broken. But if you want diversity, character diversity in terms of play styles, look at the way the game plays. It doesn't have to be.
I want Crimson away on this also because Crimson and I had this conversation, and I think he made a great point, and I want him to make this point again here. People so the MK community doesn't understand what freedom. We say we want our freedom back and we want our diversity back, but they don't really understand what that means. When you have your freedom, and it's like if you watch anything in life, there's freedom that, UFC was founded on what would happen if this style fought this style, right? It's founded on that. What if the boxer goes up against the wrestler, right? That's kind of like what it was founded on. Like anything in sports, fighting, whatever, when you have multiple archetypes of teams, some teams run in football, some teams are passing teams, some teams are good at both, some is just heavily defensive. Whenever you have these situations, there's always going to be fights that are kind of weird. Some archetypes, some styles, what do they say in fighting, Dave? Styles make fights, right? Some styles are naturally, some archetypes are going to be advantageous over another, right? It doesn't mean it's unfair. It's just when you have multiple different archetypes, whether it's a zoner, a counter zoner, a keep away character, a runaway character, a trapper, a setup character, a grappler, a rush down character with pressure, rush down with 50-50s, There are all types of characters you can have in the game. Mortal Kombat 11 says, fuck it. Remove them all but one. And that's what they did. And before somebody says Cetrion's a zoner, Cetrion is not a zoner. For one, she's only a zoner in that you cannot counter zone her because she has a teleport, which makes her a zoner even though she's not. And Shao Kahn is the brawler who is, you'd much rather be next to Shao Kahn than Cetrion. And she's supposed to be the keep away character. Yeah. It's terribly, you have a brawler. MK11 gives you a brawler who doesn't brawl. RoboCop, a zoner who can't zone. Scarlet is a keep away character who can't keep you away. I mean, it's what is this?
Is there if I add in something too? My bad, I cut you off, Dave.
No, go ahead. Go.
Well, you guys said earlier about like I know Rio said MKX had 1 billion patches or whatever. Now, obviously MK11 isn't finished, and who knows if it will get more patches than X in the end of its life. But every patch, we have still seen the same issues we're complaining about now. Am I wrong about that, or?
No, you are. But I mean, even if they took the wake up system with 52 frames of invincibility, which, I mean, if you want to defend it 1 full second of invincibility, I would love to hear that argument.
No, I'm not defending the wake up system.
My point is that,
I hate the wake up
I mean,
system.
I can try to tell you why they have it like
I'm
that.
saying...
Even if they took the wake up... My point is, though, even if they took the wake up system and said, okay, what do you guys want? Forward roll to take multiple bars? Done. You want short delay gun? Done. Oh, you want breakaway to be a guaranteed long delay? Done. You want armor off fatal blows? Done. People would still be complaining. The game
you're just going to limit all the options.
But the game, but people would still
more one-dimensional.
That would help the game a lot. But people would still say, "Oh, you know, the game is boring. The game is boring." So it goes beyond just the overall system.
Yeah, what I was saying was a simple patch isn't going to fix what there's going to be a lot of
we need more Kombat like 11.7
because every patch that has happened, I've just had the same problems just come back to me. And like I said, after Aftermath release, I was already bored within the game. I was with the game after 2 weeks.
Yeah, and CrimsonShadow, I had a conversation with him, and we said, you know, when you have, if all of a sudden the next game, the devs say, or they make a huge overhaul, the devs say, like magic, you want all your archetypes back? Done. All the skill sets that you have cried about removing, I'm putting them back into the game. The community would then cry, well, why is this matchup hard? Well, your archetype is going to have kind of a hard time against this archetype. It doesn't make it unfair, but with freedom comes...
You're going to say it's a counterpick fest.
But that's what happens with freedom. I mean, you can't have it both ways.
I get that, but guys, I think I have a solution.
But life is not fair, right?
You know what, I think
what would make
the game, I think... Some of you may just not have any interest in the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think it's actually an issue with the game.
No, that's not true.
Sometimes games come out and you're just not into them no matter what happens.
Dude, life is not fair. But what makes life fair is if we all look the same.
Which game we preferred, so I mean...
I'm saying, Franco, what if they do like a huge overhaul next patch and you still don't like the game? Would you finally admit after 2 years when we're playing MK12 that, you know what, maybe MK11 just wasn't your style, it just wasn't for you, and no amount of patching would do that.
I don't know about that,
dude. Wants. I mean, like, again, you have to understand, it's not that the game is, first of all, there are games that the foundation of the game is so bad that even when they introduce secondary and tertiary layers of meta, the foundation is so crap, it's going to crumble no matter what they pile on top of it. Mortal Kombat 11 is in such that the foundation is very solid. They just did not really add any secondary or tertiary layers of meta. See Shao Kahn for that, because if you think forward 3 shoulders meta, then you need to play a different game. Then there are characters like Jackie that have kind of a secondary and tertiary layer, and she's far from overwhelming. She just seems that way because there's only one archetype in the game, and Jackie happens to dominate those archetypes. The real thing is that even when you get freedom back, people are going to say, well, why is that match 6.5 advantage to him? It's fair because, like I said, life isn't fair. But if we look the same, talk the same, all work at the same place, all made the same amount of money, all wear the same clothes, all ate the same meals, life would be very fair. There, you know, everybody would make the same money or live in the same homes. But nobody wants to sacrifice the diversity that comes with life so that it will be more fair.
Another thing,
has done that.
if you were to run into that scenario with a game of freedom too, you could always
communist, bro.
I mean, are we really saying MKX didn't do that, just in a different
No,
direction?
what I'm saying is that what I'm saying.
I feel like MKX was the first game to do that
I'm
because
not
MK9
defending
and Justice
Mortal
1 were
Kombat-
very diverse with
Mortal
playstyles.
Kombat
MKX
X's
is the first game
problem-
that started this.
Yeah, and I agree with
making
Leo.
every character
Mortal
play
Kombat
very
X's
similar.
problem. Mortal Kombat 11 is take MKX, dumb it down, and there's no run. But it still caters to the offensive playstyle, to the offensive player. MKX's problem was the only archetype in the game that succeeds is offensive. Mortal Kombat 11 does not fall far from that.
I want to
Now-
make
Go
I
ahead.
want to make
No.
2 points, and they're connected to each other.
Okay.
Now this is obviously we don't know, right? This is me guessing from the outside. But what I think is that I think MK11 is fundamentally a paradox, and the reason it's a paradox is because when you talk about freedom, when they were concepting this game, they toyed with the idea of giving people the ultimate freedom. All right, so. The first thing I want to say is I do not think that 2 years is enough time to balance 3 variations for every character.
I agree.
Maybe if it's a legacy game, maybe. But if you're doing new mechanics, if you're also changing the meta a lot, I don't think it's enough time. But I think really that for a good portion of development, my guess is that they were toying with giving people the ultimate freedom. In hey, if we just let people make their own variations and their own characters, then they can.
Did he cut out?
Yeah, I don't hear him either.
Yeah, I can't hear him.
Crimson, you cut out. We can't hear you.
Well, while we wait for him to come back,
Yeah.
a point he and I made on a private conversation.
He's back.
A point he and I made on a private conversation was that when you give people freedom and all
Dave,
their
can you message him real
back,
quick? Because he probably doesn't know that we can't hear him.
Oh, yeah, he's back. I think. Can you hear Krim?
I'm gonna.
No, I'm the one that moved him in and out just to see if it would fix it.
Oh, okay.
He didn't do that. He's probably still talking.
Yeah. So the thing is, the to the point that he and I made earlier, even if they gave everyone all their freedom back, people would then complain, oh, well, this matchup is hard, or, oh, the pace of this game is too slow, the pace of this is too fast, right? So they would complain, oh, why is this match so boring? Look, in UFC, there are matches that can be boring or fast-paced or whatever because of archetypes. Boxing doesn't ban Floyd Mayweather because people are bored when they watch him box, right? In MK11, it just feels like people complained about what diversity brings, so they removed all diversity, and now people complain that they're bored. But as soon as they got their diversity back, we are unwilling to accept the flaw of what diversity brings. It's like we want this perfect game. We want what cannot exist, so we're always complaining about it. I think if we get our diversity back, hopefully we do, we can accept the flaw that comes along with it and enjoy the game.
The whole thing is, this argument is just odd to me because it's not really the diversity thing. It's more, the only thing I see that people enjoyed more about MKX and MK11 is the combo.
I personally enjoyed neither. I mean, I'm barely.
Dude, I'll tell you this right now. I would play MK11 for the next 3 years than ever go one day back to MK.
I would probably want to.
I'm on X for that.
I'd probably want to play neither.
I'd probably want to jump out a window, dude. But anyway.
Yeah, maybe too. I would jump out.
Crimson, hold on. Crimson, do we have you back? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, finish your point. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, where did I cut off?
You were cutting
You were
off
talking about the
at
paradox
like
of-
We were just about to go into your
paradox.
point, and then you could
you
have,
said
yeah,
the game
justice
creates
is
a
a paradox.
paradox.
I mean, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so what I was going to say is I feel like MK11 is fundamentally a paradox. And the reason why is that they were toying, when you talk about freedom, they were toying with giving people like the ultimate freedom, right? Like, I feel like through concept phase and through a substantial part of the development of this game, they were internally answering the question, can we give people all the freedom and let them make their own variations?
And customs
Let
are
them-
still very bland as well for a lot of characters, but they could have toyed with it.
Right. And I think that fundamentally that came down to a choice between, listen, we can put this in the game for competitive play, and it might be crazy, right? It might end up in more 7-3s. It might have more lopsided matchups. We might have to patch it more aggressively. But when we've been blown up for the last however many games over our games are too crazy, they're too unbalanced, the matchups are too lopsided. Like, can we do this? And I think that must have
Yep.
been a very tough.
Gotta be careful what you wish for sometimes.
Right. And I think that was probably a really tough decision internally. I'm sure they had lots of discussions and arguments. And ultimately, they decided no. And so, what we have to ask ourselves is this community ready to accept another game where there are more lopsided matchups, there's more creativity, but it's less balanced, and they may have to patch it more aggressively.
So you're saying, are we willing to accept the game in which Paulo takes the handcuffs off the characters? Yes.
Right.
I'm perfectly ready.
Yeah, easily.
Are you guys ready for Katana's Back 2 to be an overlay?
I'm
Do
ready
you like
for
the
it.
game
Well,
more when that happens?
Well,
Hold
hold on.
on.
Before you guys get in your crazy
frozen
well,
in ice.
Franco, go ahead.
with how MK11 is, obviously we have the variation system that's going to stay in the game, whether it's we use presets or customs, whatever.
Yeah, for 11,
Now-
that's not coming out. Yes, exactly.
So as long as working with what we have, because we don't know what MK12 is going to be like or whatever other future NRS game is going to be like. With what we have now, the game has potential, in my opinion. I'm not saying MK11's unfixable, but it's going to need a lot of work. And I think the patches are way too slow for how like little stuff there is in the game. Like, I don't get why they're afraid to buff Shao Kahn in certain areas. Like, we've been dealing with Jackie being obnoxious since before Final Combat, and that was like in March.
September, a year.
Oh wow, okay. Well, with how shallow this game is, like it's clear like that there's characters that need help, and it's like easier to find stuff, whether it's issues or broken things. Like it's easier to find that stuff because there's less of it in this game compared to an MKX. Like some people in MKX thought some characters were bad, but it just took a specific person to like dive in with the character, lab them, whatever, and bust them out in tournament. But in MK11, we kind of already know the general.
What
like,
do you have any examples of that?
Ronan Takeda was super sleeper top tier until Hayate dominated Canada with him at his first tournament. He beat Honeybee.
But you also have to factor in.
Yeah, he also had a block infinite.
Come on,
Like
you
we
also
talked
have
about.
to factor
But the
in.
thing is, like that wasn't discovered though. Like a lot of the stuff in MK11 we know now was discovered so early. Like,
But you got to factor in when MKX was launched, the netcode was atrocious. MK11
Also,
launched with-
that one patch, Ronan Takeda got so many buffs. He wasn't like that in the beginning of the game.
Yeah,
and I'm not justifying
He-
that patch.
No,
like,
but it's more of like him getting patched to be that way than someone just came out of nowhere and showed people how good Ronan was. Because MKX was like steroid patched every couple months, and some characters went like dramatically up in different
Liu
amounts
Kang
of
had
life.
5 block infinites for a year, and people, were still sleeping on him for a while.
That's right. But Rio, I just look, man. I don't understand you. I don't know if we should say this.
Well, you don't understand me, then let's talk.
Okay,
Like, what do you want to argue about?
no. Hold on. I want to say you don't like the game. Look, we talk privately all the time. You don't like the game. You don't want to play the game. You don't care about the game. Why are you defending?
It's not that I don't like the game. I'm just like indifferent. It's like whatever.
No, that's fair.
I like the game for some things, and some games are whatever.
No,
too.
but how-
We want to like it, but you're bored of it, just like all of us. It's
Well,
too
let,
shallow.
let me. At time, I understand that, but with Rio, I think here's the thing. I haven't criticized this game because there's nothing to criticize. I'm not passionate about it. I don't complain anymore because there's nothing really to complain about. And
Right, but that's fine. You can have your opinion, but I want to hear your opinion on why you think MK11 is bad or needs to be improved.
I don't think the game is bad. I have never called the game bad. I have consistently defended the game on here, on the
You have
podcast.
the same stance as me. Then what is your?
Well, I think okay. As I told you the other day, Master D came over. Obviously, we can't play with too many people because of what's going on in the world right now.
Mhm.
I felt I was playing a fighting game for the first time in a long time. My actually wrist started hurting, and I'm not an execution player. I've never was one. I never will be one. Right? I was using Fakuram, whatever. But the point is, I actually felt I was working for something. I pick Highborn Katana, and I'm just questioning myself, what the hell am I doing here half the time?
Look, play Fujin and your wrist will hurt.
No, I understand that.
Don't play
but
Cyclone though; your wrist won't be hurting at all.
No,
we
your brain will probably be melting.
We
from how
need-
dog shit
we
it is.
need more characters like Fujin in the game.
Dave,
Not
but this is
Cyclone
my
Fusion.
point. Let's go
Not-
back to
not
MKX
Cyclone
then. Let's go
Fusion.
back to no, hold on. I see your point now. You want execution? Let's go back to MKX. Do we really want execution?
Yeah.
Because I don't. Were you there for MKX? We were all
He's
there
not
for MKX,
talking about
right?
execution. What I think he's saying is, in general, when he's
Oh, you don't
playing
want execution, so
Sakura,
you don't want more
No, it's
buttons
not-
and
dude,
different
you
combat
have
paths and
so
all?
many different things. With Katana, he's doing highborn stance and back one for Denny and Razor. That's it.
So what? And in MKX, he was doing 4-2-1-2 with Tremor literally 50 times per round.
And
I literally have video footage of that on my.
I understand on your YouTube channel. I understand.
Dave, I did a first to 10 with you with my Predator versus Tremor. You literally did the same exact shit for 10 matches in a row.
I understand that. And
Now it's an issue because you're playing a different game.
hold on a minute. Let me explain my point. I was never big. I said from day one that that MKX was extremely monotonous. I was one of the first people to criticize the game when I saw Dizzy fight Sonic Fox at Combo Breaker. What was it? 2012, 2013? I can't remember.
15.
Yeah, 15. Thank you. So I was one of the first people to criticize it. But with that said, it's inarguable that MKX just has more depth to it. Forget about the execution.
More combo depth, right?
Not just
It's a different
combo.
kind
No,
of depth.
execution easily. 'cause
Execution
you're
easily.
Wait. Execute. Okay,
You're
okay.
way more
What-
likely
hold
to
on,
drop
hold
a
on.
combo in MKX in
I wanna
clutch
talk about this.
situations compared to 11. Like MK11 doesn't have nearly as hard of combos as X.
Dave can't even do noobs B&B, and he wants to talk to me about execution.
Well, I mean, like, for
Anyway-
example,
Let me
you guys
explain.
had this conversation earlier. Remember last podcast, Rio? Remember Zyphox? They were talking about Katana and whatever.
Yeah, no, I just want like I want to break these examples down. I feel like we're just
Okay, well,
beating
let's
around the bush and
Zyphox
going
get
from
in here.
different points.
All right.
But I want to hear about
Okay,
the
hold on. Let's
execution
Zyphox
in
get in here.
MKX
Let's
stuff.
Zyphox get in here.
Let me explain to you what depth and different in these two games look like. Right? MK11. You had to string your -6, right, or -7. As a player who is now on the basically +6 because the other person just did a -6 move or -7 move on block, what are you doing that has depth in that situation? You could throw them, you could count, you could poke them, you could do a string, you could probably walk back. I don't know, false.
Nothing but the
like,
basics.
It's nothing but the basics. MKX. If you get in that same situation, and God forbid, but you have armor, you have neutral jump punch, you have other things that you can do in that situation.
Backdash, by the way. Backdash also.
Backdash. You have so many more situations that you have at your disposal in any moment's notice, and that's what the depth is. MK11, you have cookie cutter, straight up like strike, poke, throw. That's your string, poke, throw. That's it, literally, for most characters. And that's Jackie's the only one where like, okay, well, I can do the fucking shrapnel on your shit. If you try to counter poke me in this situation, Like, why? Why isn't she the only character? Fujin could kind of do the same thing too, realistically, but like, it's not anywhere near as good as what Jackie can do. I can name you 4 different characters right now off the top of my head that can do way different shit. How many command grab characters are in this game, right? Yeah, I feel like I don't know, bro. It's just not the same. Some characters like
Well, the command grabs are more toned down. They have
Yeah,
actual
definitely,
recovery in this
but
game compared to
everything-
MKX.
but
That's
like,
because
that
people
just comes
complain
right
that
now.
command grabs are cheap. Not only do we want an offensive game, but we have rules into how you can be offensive. So,
Well,
our
Tom,
community
I
doesn't-
think Tom.
Okay, so
Yeah,
so what I'm
no,
hearing is MKX has better depth up close and combos.
Dude.
Well, yeah, that makes a big difference. It's like saying,
in
yeah,
my
I have
opinion, they're
3
both.
more options.
But what about
Okay,
everything else?
okay,
What about the neutral and footsies? What about everything else about a battle fighting?
Okay,
game?
Okay.
look, in my opinion, they are both equally shallow in one aspect. That is, it really caters toward one archetype offense. Both of them do MK11, not as to the extreme, but they both do in that manner. The difference between MKX and MK11, because I know reason, so we think you have the
Well, no, because I'm just remembering the days of me
execution
playing
to me
MKX,
doesn't
where I
necessarily
literally
mean
played
depth in it.
Zyphox. I played Zyphox, and guess who I was using? Veritor Lackey, and guess what the whole game was? Down, one, down, one, down, one, down, one, down. And you couldn't even almost do shit with Liu King.
I mean,
You remember those games?
I mean, again,
Is that
I'm
depth?
not here to talk about execution because I don't really think either game was rocket science and execution. However, I don't necessarily consider execution to be like the standard of depth.
I don't think the community wants execution.
MK11 was mega offensive. MKX, MK11 is more like a pseudo MKX without run and more toned down offensive options. So it's like, we're going to give you offensive options, but we're going to seriously tone them down. We're not going to make them extreme, and we're not going to have a run button. So you're not going to like be, like running at each other like constantly. However, when you're in that, most of Mortal Kombat 11 is range 0 to 2. Most of the matches. And in MKX, in range 0 to 2, you can just do a lot more than you can in this game in that range. Every Mortal Kombat, even going to MK9, has had the same throw being, it's a mix, forward or backwards. The reason why throws are so much more dominant is because they're one of the only options you have. You just don't have any other ones. You have to throw because you can't do shit else. It's more prevalent because so much of your options are gone. Throw is one of the only ones you have left.
That's right. Even though actually throws.
Okay, so
hold on a minute.
Let's say wait. Let's say if MK11 had more MKX stuff, right? Let's say if more characters.
No, I don't want to have more
MK11.
I don't want that.
No, wait, hold on. But let's say if more characters in MK11 could play like MK characters, you get hit by a poke, you're plus double digits over to low over and over.
Rio.
Would that make the game better?
No, we're not.
Hold on. He doesn't.
I don't even understand why it has
Hold on.
Okay. But this is why I want exact examples. No. Hold on. Wait. We're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere. Hold on, Dave. We're getting somewhere. Now we can actually name specific examples of characters that have depth up close in MKX. Let's hear them. Because obviously the example I brought up is not wanted.
That's not
which MKX had a lot.
The point is this. Look, two things can be true at once. First of all, just because we think MKX has slightly more depth doesn't necessarily mean that MK11 is bad and has no depth at all. That's not
it doesn't also mean that MKX is a cornucopia of depth.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I just want you to explain. Okay, but I want you to explain what kind of up close depth you want.
Just explained it to you. You play up close. You do a poke that's -6.
Yes, but I want the character examples. It's kind of hard to say a character does a backdash. This character.
It's a universal thing. Everybody can do a throw. Everybody can do the mid.
Okay, so you're not talking about Ermac hitting you with a poke.
No, because I don't want to seem like I'm saying MKX is this like overwhelming depth. To me, Mortal Kombat X has slightly more depth than MK11. However, neither two games are hitting a home run in the overall depth department. Both are extremely shallow, and that there's only one way you're going to play.
Awesome. Yeah, Rio. We're not saying MKX has depth and as far as offense goes. We're saying it has combo.
But the thing is, but I have to go through that because you guys are being very general. If you guys can name characters,
what I'm just saying is,
obviously Lackey, Fair is on one of them, and obviously Ermac and whatever the 50-50 characters I mentioned aren't one. So who are really the characters? Dragonfire, Liu Kang, is that depth?
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of it.
So having to block 4-2-1 and back 1-2 after literally everything, and you have barely any options to deal with that, is what you guys want for MK11?
No.
It sounds like what Jackie does.
Nobody's saying that's either of those two games. The argument. Dude, what are you talking about? Stop.
No, what we're really saying is, Rio, we don't want either of those two games.
Exactly.
So wait, you guys don't want MKX or MK11?
No.
Okay.
There's aspects I can list so many aspects from MKX that I would rather have than MK11.
Okay, talk about
saying if we had
it seems like
hold on,
some people are getting angry at me because I'm mentioning MKX.
Tom, let him make his point.
Is the question worded differently? Because the way I understood the question was, if we're in a room and myself and Dave are looking at two game boxes, one says MKX, one says MK11, which one are we going to pick up? Well, if those are our only two choices, we're going to pick up X.
Thank you. Rio doesn't understand that. He thinks just like MK is like your favorite game. I wouldn't play either. I would probably play Injustice too, honestly.
I'm not saying that. I'm just puzzled as to why you would want to play MKX.
Hey, Rio, I'll name you.
I don't want to play either.
If you want specifics, I'll name you some. From just my personal opinion. Now, I'm not saying MKX has all the aspects. I'm just saying it has more of what I would rather have.
All I want is when you guys say this game is better up close, I want you to name exact character examples.
Okay.
Instead of saying generic stuff like backdashing this, that.
I gave you examples. You didn't like it. But go ahead, King.
MKX.
Yeah, you told me Tremor, but Tremor's a very bad example.
Still does more.
That character was literally down 1 and 4-1-2-1.
Still does a lot more than my favorite.
Tremor's entire up close game in MKX. Like I said, if you don't believe me, I could show you footage of you playing the game in your prime. Was literally your entire up close game was literally down 1 and 4-1-2-1.
I don't need you to.
I'm not even joking.
You just did I'm probably like the second person to do it after DJT. But the point is,
okay, but I'm just telling you what you did with the character for years.
Still more options than Highborn.
You did two things.
Still more options than Highborn. Easily. Still more options than Highborn. Easily.
Yeah, it's still more complex.
Is it really? Because Highborn does pokes into different strings into the loop.
Yeah, well, like
Tremor does the same exact string all the time.
It's
I
more
think it-
complex than you're making it sound. Just a little bit. Like you have clearly more options in X and 11. But I'll name you specific examples. Like I said, all of them aren't better in X, but there are more better things in X than 11, in my opinion. And that's the combo system.
Which I agree. The combo does have more.
You
depth,
have
but
way
aside from
more
that-
combo depth. The wake up system is way better. The poke system is way better. And I'm talking about like the block stun and stuff to prevent the constant back-to-back mashing. Just the general mechanics, or not mechanics, but
Franco.
function. Hold on. Mechanic was the wrong word. Functions of everything. Like there's barely any whiffing issues for strings at the end of the game's life. I can't even remember any that was before the game's life ended. I can't even remember that many whiffing issues. So
honestly,
it had consistency.
King Jr., I think you will agree with me. I think the game probably has better zoning than MK11 does, honestly. At the very end of the patch, you had characters like Kitana doing very well, and some other characters.
She was very well because she was obnoxious. Up
I know,
close.
but that's the way it is. But at
We
least-
don't agree with the obnoxious offense, Rio. We're saying that's one of the
No,
bad
I get
things
that.
about
When Dave wants to say Katana was good because she was zoning, and then I have to correct it to say, well, she was actually stupid up close.
She wasn't
You have to,
stupid
you know,
up
speak the
close.
truth
She
here.
was good. She wasn't. Anyone needs good up close as some of the
Are
other.
you kidding me? She had literally like no unsafe string that led to 50%. She literally turned it into literally 50-50 god mix-up character
Is
when
she
she
better
had full
than- is she
bar.
better than
When she
Ermac
built
up
meter like candy. What are you
Is she
talking
better than
about?
Ermac? Is she better than Ermac up close? Is she better than Tremor up close? Is she better than?
Depends. Does she have meter or not?
Is she? You always have meter for the most part.
If she has 3 bars, I'm pulling out the cross and staying away from her. She's that stupid. Up
Is
close.
she better than
First of all,
Shinnok
you know
up
what?
close?
My
I don't
dude,
even
she
know
had
why
a
we don't
plus.
hit on this.
She had a
We
plus
don't even hit
advantage
on
move
this.
that was.
We don't even hit on this.
Tom, can we correct Dave here? Because this is obnoxious. He didn't even remember the character he's talking about. Katana had like a plus 20 DP launcher that led into guaranteed strings that build meter. Then she literally became a 50-50 god character when she had X-ray with literally had 0 risk. What are you talking about?
No, we're talking about
Go watch
X-rays.
footage of the character being played.
X-rays and freaking MKX.
Go
Shut your
watch
mouth,
footage.
dude.
Go watch the footage of the character
Oh
being
my
played. She was
God.
stupid up close.
X-rays.
What are you talking about? Katana was in double close.
You know what the
This is
hell?
one
Her
of the biggest
zoning.
things
Her
Rio hit
offense
on.
was better than her zoning. What are
Rio
you
has a
smoking?
great point.
I feel like Dave didn't even play the game.
Hold on. Rio has a great point, and I think this is a point that we missed. He said when she has X-ray, she's a safe 50-50 goddess. But when she uses that X-ray, if she's wrong, the bitch ain't doing nothing because her meter's not coming back by itself. Mortal Kombat 11 says, look, man.
Yes, but you forget that she was one of the
Mortal
better
Kombat
15
Let's
natural characters.
talk about that. By the way, more in-depth meter
Let
system.
me talk
Let's
about this.
add that.
Okay, here's the depth right
Understandable.
here.
Let's add that to the
I
depth
got
as
it,
well.
Dave. I got it. Here's the depth right here. Mortal Kombat 11 says there are some decisions that are really hard for you. Sometimes you can't break when you want. You don't have X-ray when you want. You can't do enhanced moves when you want. This meter managing thing is tough, right? You have to engage in the game, build it back yourself. Why don't we do it all for you, right? So it builds by itself. Now you're always, they dumb the offense down so much. They don't want you to have to think about anything to be able to do offensive moves. They say, we want you to be able to do 500 enhanced moves during a round.
Yeah, do you guys remember that time where Dragonfire Liu King didn't have armor to do his 1 bar attack? Remember
Okay,
that?
yeah, but
How rare was that?
My point is,
again, we're not
it
saying
does,
MKX
it does
is
everything
perfect.
for you. By the way, even down to being able to, you don't even have to activate your last breath. In any other game, you would actually have to activate that, right? The game says, "Oh, you're blocking. We'll just take that for you. No problem, friend." It micromanages all your decisions for you in so many ways. Even to the point, I mean, in so many ways, it micromanages so many things that forces the player to make a decision. The game micromanages it for you, literally, even down to your super mechanic. Everything
Can we talk
is
about the anti-air
micromanaged
depth?
for you.
Oh yes, I love to talk about anti-air. Let's talk about the person who
The
shit
anti-air
on
depth.
the anti-air depth because of your shenanigans back in the day.
Oh, no, let's not go here.
Let's definitely go there because he called me out saying some nonsense about me. Let's talk about that.
Wait, hold on. I want to get this clear then. You said that I was responsible for the last patch. I was in charge of telling Paul to make the last patch,
No.
and I was responsible for making MKX a
You
worse
were
game.
not the only.
So you believe that? So you wait. You believe that pre-patch MKX was a better game than post-current today patch MKX? Is that what you're saying?
The last patch was better in all aspects except the anti-airs. Yes.
Okay, so the company actually made MKX worse. So MKX,
The
so
one
you guys are talking
aspect-
about MK. So wait, oh, so you guys are arguing for MKX in its prime time, like when the game was pre-patched.
Why are you constantly misrepresenting our positions? Constantly, you're
No, wait,
lying.
okay, what are you talking about then?
Stop
What do you mean?
lying out of your ass constantly.
I asked you which version of
Let
the game
me
is
answer
better.
your
You
damn
told me
question.
pre-patch.
And stop misrepresenting literally all of our points. Nobody's saying MKX was a perfect game. Nobody suggested that.
I never said you said it was a perfect
Okay,
game.
but you're making it seem like we said MK11 is bad.
No,
Nobody
I'm
said
just saying.
MK11 is
I
bad.
asked you a question. You said
I
yes, so
answered
I'm
your
going off that question.
I
What do you
answered your
mean?
question.
I said, do you think pre-patch MKX was better? You said yes, so I said okay. So that's probably the example you're using, are you not?
Yes, but here's the thing: two things can be true at once, which means anti-airs were worse, but everything else was better. For example, do I have to talk about all the block ifs that they removed, all the running stuff that they removed, that they tuned down? All of this stuff can be true at once, but they, in some sense, they made the offense a lot better. Why? Because people like you cried about armor 24/7, which means now there are certain situations where armor doesn't launch, and we can't deal with these oppressive situations. So in fact, Tremor's offense got even better post-patch, even though he was nerfed heavily. Why?
Well, yeah, I guess you
Teammates
could
of
say I
armor.
cried about armor back then, kind of like you're crying about MK11 having no depth right now. But
Teammates
yeah,
of
true.
armor.
No, I'm not. Hey, they can change the game anyone they want. And besides, I'm not the one leading the charge. There are plenty of people on Twitter who are. I'm not a high level player at this game. They can look at Zyphox saying the same thing, Dragon, Rewind, tens of other, hundreds of other players who play the game.
That's fine, but
much better
I
than me.
believe MKX was a better product at the last patch. We tend to disagree here, which is fine.
MKX was what?
A better product on the last patch.
Yeah,
than the version that you prefer.
Nobody denied that. Again, nobody said the game was not better with the last patch. That's again.
Well, you said you like the pre-patch version.
I
better,
never
so is
said
not
that. I
better for you?
said again. You literally cannot hear what I'm
Okay,
saying.
I'm confused then. Which version of MKX
I
do you
just
like?
told you. I like the last patch better.
Pre-patch or post-patch?
Oh my
'Cause I feel like we're getting confused here.
No, I think you're
Tom,
confused.
Every
Everybody else gets it.
time.
Everybody, I think you're confused. Everybody else gets what I'm saying.
And ears, and
Okay,
ears, and ears. You saying that?
Yeah, so he likes the pre-patch version for anti-airs.
Yes, that's all I
They're-
said. That doesn't mean I don't like the other whole part as a game better, which I do. That's literally what I just told you many times.
Well, here's an important point that I want to talk about, and I think it kind of leads to like where do we go from here. So to get back to what Zyphox said, a lot of the stuff that they took out, I think not with the intention of removing depth, but they wanted to change the way that you open people up. And what they did not want is for MK11 to be a game where you open people up on black. They didn't want you to get in a situation where someone is blocking and you have 50 options for what you do in order to open them up. What they wanted to do is focus the entire game so that you open people up in neutral and there are not a lot of shortcuts to get around that. So
Garrus was doing a lot of that neutral
It's-
thing, right?
it's-
At the beginning of the game. Yeah.
it's neutral, it's staggers, and it's strike throw. Fundamentally, like Franco said, some people are not gonna like that kind of game. The chances of that changing are pretty slim.
The focus was don't let people be able to play the game by walking backwards. There's a strong emphasis on this. Most of MK11 is at range 0 to range 2 or 3. Almost all of it is.
But yeah, so I think fundamentally, like, besides the question of like which game we like more, like maybe we could get into the question of like, is it possible for this community to tolerate two games that are different from each other and not have to say that one has to be exactly like the other? Because the truth is, it's really going to be hard for everyone to agree on what the perfect NRS game should be.
Well said. All the more reason for NetherRealm to say, you know what? We took out like 30 archetypes. Fuck it. We're bringing them all back in. And that's depth. And we just have to accept the downside that goes along with it. That's just, it's all there is to it. You can't have it both ways. People want their depth. They want their freedom. There's a downside to that.
I mean, even the meter system, right? Like, I don't think they didn't change the meter system to make decisions for you. They changed it because throughout the history of NRS games, we've had characters that either offensively or through zoning build meter for free and have
True,
meters to
Crimson,
get you
but
out.
that-
Yeah,
that's
like Melina and Liu Kang from MKX.
But that's true. But that's more of a balancing issue, and less of a
That's because we live in a community where people see a fireball and they go, "Oh, what do I do? What do I? Oh my god,
Tom, that's
broken.
true, but I mean, look at all the other games for God's sake.
We are the dumbest. We are the dumbest community when it comes to getting around a goddamn fireball.
Well, wait. Be fair. In a game like MK9, you could get around a fireball, right? You could be
Yeah.
as patient as you want. Then I'm right next to Sonya or
Yeah.
Kenshi or whoever, and now I get hit with a gigantic armor move that might even be safe.
I had to deal with it.
Courtesy of M2 Day, by the way. He loves that song.
Right, or like in Injustice, I get all the way in. I'm super patient just to get push black when I finally get my offense going. So, you know what I mean? Like, I understand what you're saying.
Oh, the poor offensive player. Oh God.
Yeah, oh my God. Siren gets to get in to do 100% combos, and oh my God, what are we gonna do?
They want strong offense. Do they not understand? Zoners, zoning characters are characters who are very, very good from range. They make it difficult for you to get in. However, when you get in, they will struggle. Mega offensive characters are supposed to be hard for them to get in. But when they're in, they're powerful. Mortal Kombat says, oh, this offensive character, they need 30 ways to get in. How unfair it is for them that they have to fight to get around something. That's how the fucking game is.
Especially when they have depth like flying kick meter.
They have removed the weakness of offensive characters.
Well, I mean, what was your reward for getting in on Cabal and MK9?
Clone.
Indie season flash berries. You know what I mean? Like, it's never been really bad.
Not my problem. I don't have to deal with that shit.
And can I issue? It wasn't really zoning. It was more so balance, but that's a different game. We're talking about. We have to get back to MKX.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is there's neither of those two games introduces the archetypes. As far as depth is concerned, neither of those two games is like knocking your socks off for depth. The only thing that MKX gives you over MK11 is they're both played in a similar range, but MKX, because it is a little more over the top, gives you more things to do in that range. Mortal Kombat 11 is very similar to painting your wall and watching it dry, which is why the game is in the state that it's in right now. I think, regardless of what you think is depth or not, the bottom line is we need like MK11.7. That's really what we need. I mean, I don't see any other way the game survives.
Well, I do want to wrap it up, and I want to give the guests the final words. I think it's only fair. Let me start with King Jr., then Crimson. King Jr., go ahead. Any final thoughts that you want to talk about in relation?
Are you talking about what changes I hope to see, or are you talking
No changes, please. We did that last time. We had to cancel the podcast, so let's not do that again. Let's talk about any MKX versus MK11 discussion that you would like to
okay.
Anything you want to wrap up?
I can't think of anything right now. I'll let Crimson go if he wants to. If he has anything,
sure.
I'll think for a second.
Yeah, Crimson, you want to say anything as your last word, please?
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, listen. I think everybody has good points. I think literally everybody in this podcast has said some things that I agree with. I think there's some parts on the finer points where we might disagree, but I think regardless of anyone's like personal preferences, one of the most important things for this community moving forward is figuring out how to break this cycle where we hate every game and it's gonna die after a year into the game. Right? I saw this with Injustice. Everyone was like, Injustice is dying. It's dead. Wait till Mortal Kombat comes back. Then MKX, a year and a half in, everyone was like, well, the game is dying. No one's playing it. We're waiting for Injustice to come back. Injustice 2, same thing. Oh, it's a dead game. Oh, we're a year in. No one wants to play it anymore. And now we're at MK11. We're doing the same thing. So the question is, how do we get out of this cycle, right? Is there a situation where we can let people play what they want to play and not have to bash the game every single time?
In theory, there was one game that nobody said that about. We were far from okay with it, but we weren't praying for its demise.
Right.
You know what game that is?
MK9.
And while it's far from perfect, God knows I don't want to get hit by any more 100% combos.
Justice 1, baby.
Injustice 1 was good too. I'll argue Injustice 1 was up there too.
Different archetypes. People are more willing to accept a game with 1,000 flaws if they have their freedom and options.
I don't know about 1,000 flaws, but we'll agree
I'd
to
much
dis-
rather fight M2 Dave's Freddy all day
Dave,
because at least I'm
MK9
not
has what
going to
you
fall
want,
asleep.
man. It has safe armor launching anti-airs.
I'd rather fight
Perfect game for that.
Sub-Zero versus Dave's Freddy all day because at least I'm not going to fall asleep in the middle of the fucking game.
anti-airs and MK9 are so scrubby you don't even need armor moves.
I'm not defending the anti.
That's not true, Dave. I could literally put up footage of you not answering. That's completely
I'm not defending the
false.
Oh, you can also
Completely
put up
false.
footage of me
Okay,
making,
I'm not getting into this. Either way, they've all
Right, because you doing down 3 with Katana in MK11 is so much
What I'm
more
trying
dangerous.
Dude, I was the inventor of walk up uppercut. Literally, half screen away. You told me. Shut your mouth.
We're supposed to wrap this up, man.
Yes, but you still missed anti-airs a lot.
I'm
'cause
just
they
talking
weren't
about
as
Crimson's
brain dead as you
point,
think.
where the reason why it wasn't complained about, even though the game, if we didn't wish for its demise, we complained about it a lot, but we didn't wish for its demise like we do now, is because to your point, Krim, we were more willing to accept everything that came along with diversity and freedom. Now,
Yeah, can I
it
say
seems
why
like-
I didn't wish for MK9's demise?
Why?
Because I was foolish enough to think that MKX was going to be MK9, but 100 times better. That's why.
That's
And
fair.
Krim, you made a point yesterday.
We had different mentality
Bring
back
that
then.
point
We
up
thought
that we said
MK was
yesterday.
going to be like, we thought MK was going to be kind of legacy and be what the last game was, but 100 times better with balance, everything around, but it wasn't that. It was just completely different direction.
No, that's we will agree with that. And let me give again Franco the last word. I do want to wrap it up because we said we were gonna do a certain amount of time.
Franco,
We want to try to not interrupt him. Please go ahead, Franco. Your last word.
Yeah, I think the community, like Crimson said, we gotta decide what we want. My opinion, I'm just hoping that we get away from the variation system. And as far as MKX versus 11, I just like a lot of the combo depth, the wake up system. Now the meter management system, it was imbalanced, obviously, but it was like Tom said, you had more of a way to play to gain your meter. Like you had to work to get your meter. So I think the meter system was still done better, and it's more enjoyable to play that game overall, in my opinion. But yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the community, honestly, because obviously MKX and 11 are both like imbalanced for different reasons, or have people have their reasons why they don't like both games. Neither of them are perfect, so.
All right. Well, I want to thank my co-hosts Rio, Tom, Brady, Zyphox, and I especially want to thank Crimson and King Jr. for joining us. Thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
No problem. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for coming on.
Let's
I
try
want
to
to
end.
thank Resident Evil Outbreak for making sure Rio doesn't sleep.
And I do want to end with this. Rio subscribers are tired of Rio and me playing Outbreak, so we have given you guys MK talk. So please comment on YouTube. Let us know what you think, and we will see you on the next episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for listening.